Welcome to Special Education Plan Training. This plan training is an update as of 12/16/22. The Pennsylvania Department of Education has created a future-ready planning portal. This was created so that there was a user-friendly system for all LEAs and schools. Inside the FRCP, you will find all of the plans that are required for school districts. The portal serves to ensure that all tools, resources, and support systems are effective and aligned with the specific needs of stakeholders. The special education plan is now a state required report included in the FRCP. It is no longer in the comprehensive plan as previously before. Phase 2 school districts will submit their plan May 1, 2023. Logging into the FRCP. The way to log into the FRCP is to go to education.pa.gov, select Data and Reporting, and then My PDE Suite. To access My PDE Suite, users must register a Keystone login, username and password, and those credentials to log in to My PDE Suite. If you need help with this process, there is a way for you to access help by clicking here in the PowerPoint presentation. However, shortly in the next few slides, I'm going to take this presentation live into the application, and I will show you how to access credentials and support for the login. Users are granted access to these applications within My PDE Suite by a security administrator at the educational agency or institute. In other words, if there is somebody in your school district that is identified as a security administrator and is responsible for adding and removing users on behalf of the agency and institution. When you first log into FRCP, you're going to see what I call a dashboard page. Very important to notice at the very top of the dashboard page, you will see buttons such as Home, My Plans, Reports, Resources, Plan Reports and Print, the Admin button, and a logout. You have the mission and vision of the Department of Education, your name, the plans, reports, and resources. You are going to find the report you're looking for under State Reports. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to the live application. So as I shared, you will have some resources right here on the right-hand side of the screen that will help you with your Keystone login, which will then give you the credentials to log in here. You can edit if you forgot your username or password. And if you're having difficulty with the login portion, this is the phone number for the support for that particular section of the login. I'm going to log in now. Okay, so you can also see there are other resources here for you. Find My Security Administrator. You're going to log, when you have this, I'm not sure how these will look for you individually. These are my applications, but you will have access to FRCP, and that is the one you will click on. And here is the dashboard that I referred to when we first saw the slide. You are going to find your plan, you are going to click State Reports, and then you're going to see a whole list of all of the state required reports, and there is quite a bit of them. But to find special education, you need to make sure you go to the bottom of the page and click. Now, you will not see all of these plans because these are my view, and I can see many districts. However, this is very similar to what it will look like. So we're going to look at a plan that was previously approved, but I want to point out a few of the, so let's take a look here at Albert Gallatin School District. This is a nice feature, and this is what yours will look like. So we can see the time that it was the date and time that it was last accessed, the owner, when it was submitted, the due date, and what the status is of that plan. So I'm just going to scroll to see if we can show you another example of one that's maybe, okay, so here's one right here. Altoona School District was last accessed on the 13th. It is due in May. So this is a phase 2 school district and they are in progress. So of course there's no submittal date here. And the owner, I am assuming that the owner has not added the plan to their name yet. That's why there's no owner. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we move forward. But back to Albert Gallatin, let's open, this is the link in which we'll open the plan and you will have access to your district in this particular section. So a few things to notice with a special education plan. If you are an experienced user, you have been through the special education plan process before, some of this will seem familiar. There are lots of different changes and features that we have found to be most helpful for school districts in completing the plan in a more efficient manner. The reason I'm updating this training is we've just pushed through 2 phases, phase 3 and phase 1 in the special education plan training or in the special education plan. And we've learned some things along the way. So first, let me give you a little bit of an update on this side over here. So this is where you're going to find all of your topical areas. Now, let's keep in mind, this is an approved plan. So that's why you are seeing these green checks. That means they were all completed. And these green speech bubbles with a check mean that there is words or comments for these. And then you continue to go down to, let's see, we get to the completion of that. So we can see there were no comments here, but comments, green. This is all green. So let's talk a little bit about each page. This is the special education profile and plan essentials page. Every page will include steps to complete the section and any directions. So here you have that you need to enter in the requested information and then ensure that the entered information matches what's in Edna. Here is a link to Edna. Edna is where we keep all of the data for superintendent's names, district contact information, and it has to be kept updated by you, the school district. So what we've done is we've added that link here for your convenience. We do not have anything to do with your login credentials for this particular link. It is here for convenience and as a resource. This does give the directions on how to correct an error in Edna if you discover that your information is not accurate. There's also a link to the Edna user manual. Once you enter in, if you've had to make changes to your Edna information, a few things that I have found over the last year. Right now, Edna is backed up with their updates. Could take approximately 6 weeks at this point to update that information. So I highly recommend that you check this first so that you can get your requests for changes in. If indeed they make your change, you can see in the directions that it reminds us that you have to select the refresh profile button, and that's right here. Then that will bring up, all of your information and accurate information as well. So here's one of the newer things. We add the AUN number, and what happens is because we're adding a district AUN number, we get a lot of pre-populated fields now that the district person does not have to enter when they go to complete the plan, which is really, really helpful. When you come down here, this is a little bit new in the fact that we are asking for your total number of special education students, your total enrollment, and then the system will automatically calculate your total percentage of special education, which is really nice because I reviewed plans for phase 3 and phase 1 for the entire state. It was nice to look at this section and just get a picture of the size of the district that we are looking at as we move forward and the information. Another very important part of the page is this section below, resources. Folks sometimes forget to to scroll all the way down, or they just don't realize that it's there. Resources is at the bottom of most pages, and there are things added, and we'll continue to add them as we learn what people need as we get through this process. Support request form is going to get you to request any type of support for the FRCPP. Generally, they look at it from a technical standpoint and or content. So if you utilize this form and you have a technical question, they will respond and handle that. If you use this form and you check off content related questions, it will get forwarded to one of the assigned folks in the Bureau of Special Education. If you don't know what phase you're in, this is a master phase list. And this here, again, is how you access the FRCPP LEA reports. So that's just various things that you can get into and the instructions and resources to do so. At the end of every page, you'll see a back and a continue. And in most circumstance, every circumstance, you're not seeing it right now because, again, this is an approved plan, but you can save each page as you go. So those are the highlights on this first page that I really wanted to point out, because there is a lot, and there is also we had a lot of questions about this page because of Edna, because of the delay in Edna updating, and then folks would do the updating and not be able to see it, and you have to refresh your data. So the next page is a pretty easy page. Everything is really quick. Again, you entered an AUN number. So what's really great about that is, again, it pulls over a lot of the drop-down information. This is a simple piece, but this is your committee. And this is where you're going to enter in names of folks, the position and role that they have. And this doesn't allow me to show you because of it being already approved, but it is an area that does have drop-down and various titles, as you can see right here. It also gives you the ability to put in district or specific buildings, and the individual's email should you wish to enter that. You have the ability to add more rows if your team is larger than that because you have a larger school district. And then again, here we go, resources. If you get stuck, here's the resources, support request form, and you can utilize that to assist you. We're going to continue to the next page. This is a section of the plan that you would not have seen if you are a seasoned user. This section and the next few items that we talk about are new to the special education plan and are really here and intended to be a planning and organizational tool for the LEA. So when I say that, I mean that you're not going to find the advisor or me as the final approver to say that something's compliant or not compliant. This is an organizational tool. And for your reference and resources, we have added the Penn Data SEDR link for you to quickly access information for these two tabs. We have indicators and we have monitoring. And again, this is all about school district areas of improvement and planning. One place to go back and look and see what some of your goals and areas are. So you will see here, each of the indicators, I'm just scrolling down slowly, all of the indicators that we would be concerned about are listed there. In this particular section, we see that they're gray. The reason that they are gray is because if you have nothing and you've not been flagged for an indicator, you would check that you are not flagged for that indicator, and that would, the box will turn gray. It starts out blue, it will turn gray once you do that. That is so that we all know that there's no comments in any of these and none of these need to be reviewed. You can see they have clicked not an indicator, indicator not flagged at this time. And then if you were to have several things that you wanted to add as an improvement in planning activity, you can also, there's a button there to add more. So you aren't just restricted to 3 items. And again, support for request form. So this page simply moves you to the next tab, which is monitoring. And this is a big section for those in special education. And often there are lots of unfinished items that need to be put on a list for you to organize or plan for. Again, this is intended to be a planning and organizational tool for the LEA. If you have been flagged in your monitoring for the last 3 years, please list any current, and by current, we're speaking about open improvement plans, training, or other critical information that you'd like to put here. We've also included this link for your reference, which is it will take you to the leader services and allow you to log in to look at your CAV, which is your corrective action verification. And that would indicate whether or not you have an improvement plan or corrective action still pending. So in this particular example, the district did have something they wanted to put into this tool. So they listed their corrective action that they're working on, and they also listed their improvement planning activities. So it's really a great place to just have everything in one spot. You can add more corrective actions if you have a few other things that you're working on. And again, support request form at the bottom when you are stuck on something. Identification method. So in previous years, again, for seasoned special education plan people, you will note that we used to have a full paragraph or a section that included a narrative that you would put a full paragraph in telling us what your identification method was for students with disabilities. And so here we have the steps to complete. We're now making this so simple for you. So in this case, if you're to identify the method that your district is using to identify students with specific learning disabilities, and you have a drop down. You're either going to, in this drop down that you can't see because it's already selected, you have 3 choices: discrepancy model, RTII, or both. In this instance, the district selected discrepancy model, and therefore they should be finished with this question altogether. One of the updates that we are having the developers include is that this section will disappear, or at least gray out, if you select this discrepancy model. So you may see that change happen as you move forward in your plan. It just makes it a little confusing if it stays there. So that's one of the things that we've learned as a whole after going through this process. If you do select RTI, you're going to have to include the names of your buildings who are approved by the department to use RTI. The value over here is just going to when you drop down, the value will ask you to look at reading, math, writing, or you can select all. Okay, and then we ask that each person checks there that they are PDE approved to use RTI for SLD determination with assurance of implementation of fidelity during the plan term. And then every building that you add will then show up right where you see these topical areas right here. So again, made better sense that after someone selects discrepancy model, that none of this even appears. So we're working on that piece of it. But if you select it, you will not have to fill in. You can see that you wouldn't have to fill in any of that information, only when you select RTI. Support request form, bottom of the page. The next section is not new to the plan. It's non-resident student oversight. The instructions are very simple. If your district is currently a host, you would answer yes or no. If you answer yes, there will be a facilities chart that pops up, and you will have to enter in the correct information about the facility that's located in your geographical region. In this particular case, the district clicked no. They still, under the instructions, are required to answer these 2 questions. These 2 questions have long been scrutinized under the review of both the advisor and the division chief. If you're not a host, you're going to answer as if you were. And I strongly recommend to not have any revisions in this area, that you scroll down here to educational program students and non-educational environment and look up the responsibilities for host school districts right here in this document and place the information right here in question number 2. Things we are looking for in this section are things such as responsible for child find, responsible for FAPE, responsible for providing a certified special education teacher, responsible for assigning a surrogate parent. There are lots of information in that particular BEC or resource at the bottom of the page that will give you the answer for that section. The other important piece, and plans, a lot of plans were sent for revision based on this question, because it does talk about ensuring a successful transition back to school. So whereas you may not be a host district that has a facility, you may be a school district that is going to receive a student coming back from a particular 1306 facility. And so it is so important, if you're on that end of it, as well as if you're the host and you're preparing to send a student back, that the communication process is very, very clearly outlined so that you can ensure a successful transition for the student back to school. So please input that information and include a successful transition back to school. So what you're seeing here that you won't see on your side, this is the review of the Bureau. So the Special Education Advisor has questions in this particular section that starts to look at compliance, and they're going to answer yes or no. One of the things that we're changing is when the special education plan is a two-tier approval process. So your special education advisor will do the first level and review and may send back to you for revisions, etc. Once they bring that plan and send it to the final reviewer, which is a division chief at the Bureau of Special Education, that person may read something, and even though the advisor felt that it was good to go, there may be additional revisions requested. And then once that final revision is made and the final approver approves your plan is then PDE approved. One of the things we're working on is this language here where it says this component is compliant. We're changing that language because it looks like one person has said it's compliant, and then the division chief, the final approver, may request additional information, and then the district thinks something's compliant and it's not. So we're working on the language there, and this may look a little different. You may get a message that says this section has been reviewed by the advisor. Again, here is your resource and the support request form. Incarcerated students oversight is also a section that is not new to the plan. So one of the things that we're working on here, because it's a little bit different than the way we have done this previously, do you have an adult correction facility that houses juveniles within its geographical boundaries? If the answer is no, this whole question is going to disappear. Because this is a perfect example of what we encountered. Because it didn't disappear and people were used to answering it in the old plan, people continued to answer. Now, we didn't send it back or disapprove something because they did answer it, but we don't want you to waste time that your precious time that you need for other things. So if you follow the directions, if you select yes to question 1, you will also get a facilities chart, and you have to answer question 2. But if you select no to this question 2 is not supposed to be available. So that will be fixed. And if it's not, when you go to work on your plan and you have checked no, please do not answer this question. The next section is least restrictive environment. So previously, we used to have a text box right up in this beginning part of the instructions that would say all of these questions, and then we'd have one long narrative. One of the things that we have changed since moving into this plan is to take a look and break each one down into sections. So you have more of a focus and less questions all at once to try to include in one paragraph. Now that we've been through this approval process for one year, but 2 phases, one of the highlighted areas in which people did not answer the question appropriately is they didn't refer to their data. It's very important. The question says review the district's data for LRE and highlight areas of improvement. So we want to make sure that you're seeing data, actual data, and some discussion. The next section is universal practices, and that's a fairly straightforward question. This question was also not a problem for people. Questions 4 and 5 are specific to extracurricular activities, and people seem to miss that part of it. So I'm highlighting it here for you. Make sure you answer both of these questions as they pertain to extracurricular activities. At the very bottom of the page, you're looking at out-of-district placements. The district's only going to list outside educational placements made by the district. I sometimes like to connect. You can see here's some out-of-district, right? Out of the district placements. But what I like to do is make sure that when you're looking at number 6, that you consider the out-of-district placement charge. So when you're looking at your district's need to build capacity and expand program and services, you might want to look at how many kiddos you have out for specific supports, and if there's a pattern or a trend, and then you can consider making those comments in question 6. Again, support for request form, but also some information about LRE. Positive behavior support. So this is a section 2 where a few things were this section did not have many errors. So what's nice about this section is some highlights I'd like to point out. You can now upload your behavior support policy here, and then the date that it was approved. This is particularly helpful when the school district does encounter their cyclical monitoring. This is a policy that is reviewed by the special education advisor. You are then to answer the following questions, each one specifically, and enter in the text box. And again, you won't see these questions. This is on the BSC side of it. And here, again, you have the support for request form, but you also have the disciplinary exclusions for students with disabilities. We've tried to include the supports that will help you. Intensive interagency. You're going to review the district's SES reporting data and address any student who is at substantial risk of waiting more than 30 days for an appropriate educational placement. We have included a link to the SES reporting. I highly suggest that when you have a student that you also explain how you're going to utilize the interagency coordinator. That's a process that most people forget to include in this section. So this is a little bit different. No, it's a lot different. This section is the education program profile. It used to be just called the program profile, and we're referring to it as caseload and FTE. So in this section, you have very specific instructions. You're going to complete each field for the FTE ID, and then we've defined it. It's a way to identify a position within your school, your special education program. There's only one FTE ID per employee, and each position can be broken down into multiple supports and should capture all that each employee or FTE ID is assigned. This section will not generate a SEPRIN. So a SEPRIN is a special education revision notice, a special education plan revision notice. This section will no longer generate a SEPRIN. And the reason is there are parameters built in so that it will not allow you to go outside of anything that is compliant. This is, you can search your program profile by FTE ID, by the building, by the support type, which is a nice feature for special education directors. Here's where you will create a new one. And what you'll notice is that the person is either going to be full-time, meaning they are 1.0, full-time employed with the district, or part-time. Now, when you look at these, you may say, I have someone that is employed 0.75. Then I would highly suggest that you click 1.0 and get them up to that, or use that as your guide, because it's above the 5.0. And if it's below the 5.0, I would make them the 5.0 in here. And that gives you some prorating. And then you create your FTE. So here is what one looks like created. So this particular person has a drop down. The building names pop up, the supports pop up, the level of support is a drop down. You can see where all the drop downs are. And then they enter in how many students this particular teacher has. And it calculates automatically what that FTE is. If they are outside the age range, you will have to justify it. And you can see this person now also has another section to them. And it's a smaller, looks like it's one student, and this life skills support. Now, even though their FTE is really low, they, I'm just looking to see here if we can find someone with more. They will not equal 1, even though they have selected that this person is a 1 FTE. It's just their caseload remains under, and they have so much more availability to become the full 1.0. Let's see if we can find another one that exemplifies that. Might be a little easier. So this person is full-time 1.0, and they just only have, they're carrying an FTE of 0.25. So that tells me that this person has 0.75 left for their caseload. So if you need to, you could add to this person. Let's look down here. See if you have something else here. This person is 0.45. So it looks like this district keeps their particular individuals well below the full 1.0 full caseload. But nonetheless, whatever you do for your district, it will not allow you to exceed 1.0. So you do have the ability to do so. Now this particular individual, when I look at the 2 FTEs, I know that they are 0.80, right? So they still have some capacity left in their 1.0 FTE. But you just include all of the information. Let me look, hold on here again. You're going to enter in all of your information. This person again is a 1.0, and they are carrying a 0.45. So they definitely have capacity, which is probably smart when you look at life skills support, but that's just my commentary. You can set this up any way that you want to set it up, as long as you do not exceed the 1.0 that you are designating. So this, you can see this person here, you add those together, they still have some capacity under their 1.0, and they are also full-time. So what's a little bit different here is the way this is calculated. We used to make sure that every person equaled 1.0. It's a little different because now what we're doing is you're identifying them as 1.0, and then you're actually entering in their actual caseload, and it's calculating how much of that 1.0 you're using. So that's a very critical piece here. You have the ability to delete a support and add a support. The nice thing here is you have the ability to export to Excel. And then here's your caseload maximums and also a support request form. So this is another, you notice that when we did the program caseload FTE ID, we did not include facilities. The facilities are a separate section, a separate tab altogether, and you have to complete a facilities component for every classroom using that's being used for special education instruction, including speech and language rooms. You have to, it is required that you enter in information in each box, and this is the section that will generate a separate. Now, when you're entering this in for the first time and your plan has not been approved, it's not going to generate separates every time you do it. In fact, until your plan is approved, you won't be able to submit separates in this system. You either one, submit separates in the comp planning, and this would be for phase 2 only, because you're the phase that is completing plans now. So you have two options when it comes to making changes. You will initially put in everything that you have currently approved. If you're going to add in anything new right into the new plan, then we need you to identify those spaces and contact your special education advisor so that they may come on site and approve those spaces before the plan gets approved. Option 2 is you enter in everything that's already been approved. And then if you have any additional new spaces that you're having, you would submit those in your comp planning, the old system of comp planning, and those separants can be approved that way. So two options for separants right now for phase 2 school districts. If you're phase 1 and phase 3 and you're coming back to this training as a support, know that all of your separants must be put and entered into FRCP. So now back to this particular section. Up here is your search tool. Down here is where you begin to add locations. You're going to add buildings, and your buildings will be pre-populated, the room number, and hit add location. When you do that, this is what's going to open up for you. You're going to enter in the building name, the room number, all of these things. You can see what is dropped down. What's really, really neat about this is once you enter the classroom measurements, it will automatically calculate a square footage for that classroom, and it will provide you with the maximum number of students that can be in that classroom at any one given time. I mean, I think that's been really helpful for people. We also have this feature where you can upload a building map or a photo or a video of the space. This is an optional feature. Your special education advisor can discuss with you whether they want you to utilize this. I think it's a great place to add a building map, but that is entirely up to the special education director completing the plan. But it is here as an option for you and a feature so that you can upload files into this about this particular space. There's your implementation date, and these are the questions we like to ask about the facility. So you may, and this is getting into this is an approved plan. So again, this is going to talk a little bit about the separate process. So if for some reason this particular space needs to be revised, you have options here: new, change, delete. And again, this is only going to happen and appear after your plan has been approved. You have new, change, and delete. And when you choose one of these options, there are directions for that particular for each particular action. And then you would hit create separate. So it's really easy because it's built right in. And I don't want to spend too much time on separates. I'll show you where to find those. If you need to, they go through another process. They'll go through a flow. And again, 2-tier approval. They will go to the advisor, and the advisor will send on to the division chief for a final approval. So let's look at another set. Just look at another classroom facility. Again, you fill in all the information. It fills in the square footage and tells you the maximum number of students in each classroom. Once these spaces are approved, they do not need to be approved ever again. And even if you are, moving teachers, one special education teacher into another, if you're using the room for special education, you do not have to have it reapproved because you know how many kids can be in what your room is approved to hold. And you can see they entered in all their buildings. This is a rather large district, and I will tell you that this is the section of the plan I believe is what takes the most work and organization in entering in the plan. And it's because it's all initial data entry. Once it's entered, it's all going to carry over. So here's where you're going to find the support request form. And you're going to find, again, a caseload and age range if you need to reference things here. And then separate for directions, or separate directions for LEAs, excuse me. They're right here. So anything I just showed you about clicking buttons and finding things is going to be listed right here in the directions. Special education support services are for district employees who do not carry a caseload. If they carry a caseload, they must be entered over in the education program caseload FTE. You have a drop down of all kinds of services here. I think other is an option. So if you don't find something, you pick other. You can add their value and where they're located, and also whether they're district or contractor. Special education personnel development. This is your training section, and this is a really good place where we've made some I feel some improvements. You're going to look at each of these blue, what we call accordions, and you're going to see when I scroll down slowly that there are multiple areas in which you are required to enter a training. Now, in previous plans, we have always made you have at least three trainings, one for every year of the plan. In this plan, what's different is you need to have at least one training during the duration of the 3-year plan. So for autism, we need to see at least one time in the 3 years that you're training for autism. Now, some folks choose multiple, maybe they are going to do it more than 1 year, but the requirement for compliance is that you have this training at least one time in the 3-year plan. You have to hit each topical area one time in the 3 years duration of the plan. You can add your own training topic. And I highly suggest that if you're doing training, particularly under parents or other types of training that you want to include, this is a good place to do that, because when you do that, you are now preserving them in a place that can be looked at when the district receives their cyclical monitoring process, because training in areas, these areas are things that we look at, and it's all in one place. Again, the requirement is that, and please make sure all fields are entered, but the asterisk should guarantee that you do that. Please make sure that each training topical area is covered at least one time in the 3-year duration of the plan. Here we have where we have signatures and affirmations. So you can see, obviously, because it's approved. So this is the upload. So what we have is that you need to affirm that the school district has completed the 28-day public inspection and comment period. And this is prior to the entity's governing board approval. So under governing board approval, what we accept for the board approval, or in lieu of the board approval, or equivalent to the board approval, is a signature from the school board president. That can be done by downloading this affirmation statement in Word and having the school board president sign there. It does not need to be the school board meeting date. It needs to be a document that they upload and sign. And then we assure these other statements. The superintendent will put their name in and for the sign off. So this is very, very important. Sign off and submission help guide. This is the #1 area where people struggled. The superintendent couldn't sign, or the submit button was gray. So if the submit button is gray, there's a couple of things that you need to check into. #1, does the superintendent have permission to submit the plan? all of the plans that are located, and at the very beginning of this presentation, we saw all of those state reports, and then there's more than just state reports. The superintendent is the only person who can submit the special education plan and any report in the FRCPP. And under their names, they all have permission. They add the plans in which they are the submitter. If the button is gray, in all likelihood, the superintendent did not add the special education plan to their name so that they can be the submitter. So find this resource, Sign Off and Submission Help, should give you all of the information that you need to figure out and troubleshoot why you cannot get the plan submitted. Very, very important right here. Also, we had lots of questions about printing plans and reports. Here are the directions for that. And again, if you read this and all else fails, you can send a support request form. So now you're going to get to the end of this list, and it's going to show you all of the sections. This is your summary, and you can see where there's comments or where there were comments. And again, it's not going to say compliant. It's probably going to say reviewed by your advisor, because we're making some changes there. But you will see all of the sections. And again, if you see a green check mark, that means everything was fine there. And everything is fine in all of these, except for if there's a bubble and it's not solid, it means that someone left a comment. So that's pretty important. The last piece I want to talk about right here is how there's a line that separates, because this is the plan up here, right? And then there's the separate section. And in this separate section, it's going to allow you, after the plan is approved, to go in. This is specifically for your training. And it's going to go in, see, it pulls your training over from what you entered. And then it's going to allow you to put the completion date, the uploaded agenda for that specific training, and your attendance. This to me is such a wonderful feature because, again, it keeps it all in one place. And when you're preparing for a cyclical monitoring, this can be where you direct your special education advisor to locate your training for that portion of the monitoring. And again, you won't do that until after your plan is approved, and try to kind of make it look separate because there's a line here. So this is only after the fact, and your plan is approved and you're beginning to work on the things that you have identified in your plan, and you are going to enter in, they all carried over. See, they all carried over. So if you've entered in additional ones, they're going to be here too. These are the required, but if you entered in your own, they're going to also be here. And you will be able to enter in all the information to verify completion, which I think is a really great tool. So that concludes this updated training for special education plans. I am going to go back to my slide briefly to again remind you, at the bottom of every page, mostly there were resources. That's where you're going to look. If there are resources, they are going to be listed there. And I know we saw the support request form under most of those pages. The other piece is, who can you talk to if you need some support other than what we have provided? So Dr. Amy DeLuca, myself, until December 30th, I have accepted a position and I'm leaving the Bureau as of December 30th. Dr. Amy Pastoric will be available in my absence, as well as Dr. Byron Wiley. And again, I list the link for the FRCPP support form right here on the slide. Thank you and have a great day.